Hello and welcome to Elena Meets the Author. This podcast explores how authors create a world that we can escape into. Join me as we demystify the magic that keeps us turning the page. Hello and welcome to Elena Meets the Author. I'm your host, Elena Bose. This podcast explores how authors create a world that we want to escape into. Join me as we demystify the magic that keeps us turning the page. Today, I'm speaking to Fiona Davis about her best-selling novel, The Stolen Queen. The story takes us to New York in 1978, where a 60-year-old, quiet, studious woman named Charlotte Cross, working as a curator at the Metropolitan Museum, is unwillingly teamed up with a 19-year-old, overexcited staffer for the Met Ball named Annie to find a stolen artifact. These two women could not be more different. The story uses a dual timeline, 1978 New York City and 1936 Egypt, when a much younger 18-year-old Charlotte heads to Egypt as part of her university studies to be the Girl Friday for a group of archaeologists. There, tragedy strikes, causing Charlotte to flee Egypt, never to return again until fate intervenes. Hello, Fiona, and thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. Your list of authors is really incredible. I have to say, your roster,
thank you.
Very
Thank
impressive.
you.
I'm honored to
Thank
be.
you. Thank you. Well, I'm sure they'll be happy to see that you're there with them. So I loved your description of the book as part Indiana Jones, part Thelma and Louise, and The Devil Wears Prada. I'm sure you've said this 1,000 times, but can you just tell us about the inspiration for your book, which takes us backstage at the Metropolitan Museum, to the glamorous party of the year, the Met Ball, to the cramped, dusty tombs in the Valley of the Kings, to the bustling, maze-like streets of Cairo?
Yeah, I had thought about setting a book at the Met. All my books are set in New York City iconic buildings, and that's really where I start. And so for this one, I thought so many people had said you should do the Met, but I was completely intimidated because it's enormous. There's so many people. I didn't know how to focus the story down until I read an article in the New York Times from it was about the 2018 Met Gala. And it mentioned that at the Met Gala at that time, there was this beautiful sarcophagus. It was all gold and gorgeous that the Met had bought the year before for $4 million. And during the gala, Kim Kardashian, who was wearing this gold tight dress, went and stood next to it, and people took photos. And so one of the photos went viral, and it was seen everywhere. And it was even seen by the Jordanian smuggler who'd stolen the sarcophagus,
Oh, wow.
who then complained to an undercover informant that he'd never gotten paid.
Oh,
This got back to the Manhattan DA's office that has a whole unit on stolen art. And they did a little digging, and they found that the papers had been falsified, and the Met was forced to return the sarcophagus. And I
wow.
just thought, wow, I love this idea of Egyptian art and then pop culture in terms of the Met Gala and putting
Yeah.
the two together and letting the story take off.
I love it. And the Jordanian smuggler who didn't get paid.
Yeah. I mean, it was, so that's where I got the idea. That is not in the book. There is stolen art, but
Yeah.
it's not that. And Kim Kardashian does not show up.
Exactly. But it was your starting off point.
Absolutely.
So the story is actually, you've got a character named Queen Hathakari, but she is based on a real life queen, Egyptian pharaoh, named Hatshepsut, who I think it was your quote where you said she was revered, erased, reviled, and restored. Can you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about her?
Yeah, so Hatshepsut, which is a difficult name to say for sure, was an Egyptian royalty, and she married her half brother at the age of 12, as one did in Egyptian royalty. He died not long after, and she didn't have a son. And so the crown went to the son of one of the concubines, but it was a baby. So in the meantime, Hatshepsut stepped up and became the regent, and she ruled for um, she ruled as kind of the pharaoh in waiting for about 20 years, very successfully. There were all of these advances. There was peace, there was prosperity, there was all of this trade. Went really well. And then she died. And at some point, her stepson, who then came to power, ordered many of her statues destroyed, many ordered her images hacked out of any reliefs. And so because of that, she was really lost to history.
Mhm.
People knew she ruled, but they didn't know much about her. And it wasn't until the Met team were doing a dig in the 1920s, they found this huge quarry filled with her statues and realized, oh no, she must have been very important. But what happened? And they said, well, it must have been that the stepson was angry that she ruled for so long. And so he was, mad. So that's why he did it. To the point that the catalog at the Met about Hatshepsut in the 1950s described her as a vain, ambitious, unscrupulous woman and a detested stepmother
Right.
out of, not much proof. And then a
Yeah.
scholar 10 years later found that the destruction had to have happened at least 24 years after her death, which is a really long time to hold a grudge. And they realized, no, it was about the line of succession. And the stepson wanted his son to rule and didn't want the idea of a female pharaoh out in the zeitgeist. So that's why he did it. And so because of that, it's just her journey as a woman pharaoh has been really fraught in a way that male pharaohs rarely are.
Right. I was thinking one of your maybe recurring themes is forgotten women, women who have sort of gotten written out of history.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Wow.
'cause that comes up all the time. Every book I've done, I think there's been some character who was inspired by a woman who kind of got shafted.
Good. Don't stop.
No.
One of your more colorful characters is Diana Vreeland, who I never knew it was pronounced Diana, but I Googled and it's definitely Diana, which is because I have a sister named Diana, spelled the
Ah.
same way. Maybe I'll start calling her Diana,
You should.
who turned the Met Ball from a frumpy dinner into a star studded party. So, was Diana Vreeland a big reason that you set the modern timeline of the Stolen Queen in the late 1970s so you could have her in there?
No, in fact, I didn't know much about her. I didn't even know that she ran the Met Gala. I knew nothing. And I knew I wanted Charlotte to be in the 1930s as a young woman in Egypt because I had a really good sources for that material in terms of what was going
Ah,
on which I needed to rely on. And I knew I wanted to make her 60 in the later period because I think that age is underrepresented and I'm 59 and I feel like, okay,
right.
let's. And so that's how 78 came around. And then I started looking into the Met Gala and suddenly realized I had this incredible character to work with. I mean, she was a tornado of a woman. And a lot of what she says, she actually said in the book.
Oh, great. Speaking of which, can you read a little excerpt
Yeah.
from your
Sure.
book that features
Okay,
Diana?
so this is Diana Vreeland deciding that she wants this Egyptian artifact to be in the Met Gala. That settles it. I want the broad collar for my exhibition. The woman named Charlotte stepped in before Frederick could answer. Absolutely not. This is not a bauble for some fashion show. We're still determining whether it should be displayed at all, and I have questions about the provenance. She glared at Frederick. Mrs. Vreeland made a graceful flicking motion with one hand, her polished nails shining like rubies. As far as I'm concerned, fashion is not to be so casually insulted. Fashion is part of the daily air. You can see the approach of revolution in clothes. Charlotte ran her hand through her short hair, making it stand up on end. While her part was streaked with gray, the rest was a dark chocolate color. What does that even mean? Mrs. Freeland was undeterred. Not to mention, the Costume Institute is part of this great museum for a good reason. I'm sure we don't need to remind the board how much money the Met Gala brings in each year. Charlotte began to speak, but Frederick interrupted her. That's enough. Let me handle this. We all must work together. I knew you'd understand, Frederick, said Mrs. Freeland.
I love it. Which made me think, do you know how much the Met Gala brings in? Like
Yes.
now versus then?
Yeah, that's such a good question. It started in 1949, and it was a luncheon held at a hotel, and tickets were $50.
Hmm.
Today, a ticket is $75,000, and last year
Wow.
it raised, I think, around $31 million.
Oh, wow.
It's
Okay.
the largest fundraiser for the museum, and it keeps the money. That
Uh,
stays with the Costume Institute.
the Costume Institute keeps the money.
Yep.
Wow.
It's not like it's
That's fan
shared with the other.
Yeah, the rest of the museum. Fascinating. God,
Yeah.
okay. And
Yeah.
it was $50 a ticket. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, and what Deanna Vreeland, exactly what you said, she made it into the party of the year by inviting Mick Jagger and Donna Summer, and so in the '70s, it became this great event that was held at night in the Temple of Dender. They turned this beautiful exhibition hall into basically a disco, and it was
Fun.
just a who's who of cool, fashionable people.
I love it. The Studio 54 of the Upper East Side. One
Yeah,
one night a
exactly.
year, one night a year. Uh,
Yeah.
so your novel, which I loved, is full of small, interesting details that ground the readers in place. Like when you had Charlotte, when she was a young girl, putting that bowl of water under her cot to prevent scorpions from climbing onto her bed. I had a question about that.
Yeah.
Like, why would that prevent them? But it did. It does.
But, yeah, you put a cup of water under each leg of the cot,
Oh, so yeah.
they would fall into the water. So if they climbed up the cup, they'd end up in the water, not they couldn't get
I see.
on the leg and get up. Isn't it horrible? It
Perfect.
gives you the
Yeah.
creeps. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, okay, and then, I mean, you had lots of details, but another one I loved was the basement of the Met, how there's all these signs, "Yield to art in transit." So, if you're giving advice to someone about place, what advice would you give them? Because, yeah, the Met is overwhelming, as is Cairo.
Yeah, and I think the key is, we've all read books where someone describes a room for 3 pages, and it just doesn't help you. I think I look for the most visceral details because,
Interesting.
yeah, that will put the reader right into the plot. So, for example, if I have a character at dinner party in the 1920s, I might have them serve turtle soup because it was very popular at the time, and it just makes you go, "Wow, okay, that's where we are."
Right. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, yeah, and when I went to Egypt as research because I knew I wanted to really understand what it would feel like to be in Egypt, and so things like watching the sand cover the sun and everything turn this weird orange color and being able to describe that was very important to me. It's all the senses so that the reader feels like, "Yep, okay, I was there."
When you say the sand, so, like, when you're looking at the sun, you can't really see it because the sand in the air?
There's just the wind blowing and everything kind of turns this really funny color.
I've never been to Egypt, but your book makes me wanna go, definitely. So you've written stories about 8 New York City landmarks now: the New York Public Library, the Frick Mansion, Radio City Music Hall, the Chelsea Hotel, Grand Central, the Dakota, and your first book was about the Barbican Hotel for Women. What is your process? Do you find a building you like and write about and research it and find the story, or does the story kind of come to you and then you think, or is it a mix, bit of both?
It's definitely finding the building first. I was a journalist before I started writing fiction. And so doing all that research is really important to me. That's where all the story ideas come from, the character ideas, the time, what decade should it be in, is by doing that research and doing a really deep dive. So I'm talking to people who are experts in whatever decade it is, or the building, or whatever subject it is. So, for example, Radio City Music Hall, talking to Rockettes in their 80s and 90s who danced
Oh,
there in
wow.
the 50s and 60s. And
Uh,
so that's how and so it's really them telling me what to do.
before you got to the story.
Yeah, I try and not think about characters or story, just let the history wash over me.
Okay.
And little details will start to stick. Like, oh, wow, what if I did, for example, the New York Public Library, in the research, I found that they built a 7-room apartment deep inside the library for the super and his family to live in. And they lived there for 30 years. The daughter was born in the library.
I love
And
that
I
book.
read that and
Yeah.
thought, okay, a family living in the library. Where do I go from there?
So for this book, were you doing research and that's how you came across Hatshepsut, her story, and thought,
Yes. Yeah, exactly. She has a whole gallery at the Met. And so going in there and realizing, wow, this was an important woman, and then learning about how she was really lost to history and that is one of the things I'm drawn to, made me think, okay, what if my character Charlotte is obsessed with her, right? And she really wants to bring her to light, to find her mummy, find out what the truth was about her life. And so that's Charlotte's driving force in the book.
yeah. And Charlotte, it sort of mirrors Charlotte's own journey, her own life, because she was kind of overlooked
Yes,
and not appreciated.
exactly. In the 30s, she was a young researcher. She was, coming up with these incredible finds in a dig, but then the men would usurp it and take credit. And so because of that, she really kind of closed off the rest of her life. And she'd been working at the Met, just being the associate curator, doing all the work, getting none of the glory. And finally, at the point in the book when it opens, she's ready to really, make a stand and make her career by her discoveries about Hatshepsut.
Right. I love that. And are all of your books thrillers? Bit of mystery in them?
They all have a mystery. I love a mystery. I
Yeah.
call it myself. And so they have a couple timelines and then a mystery that really drives that story forward. And the hope is just to keep people turning the pages and want to know what happened and be surprised by what the truth is.
Right. And is that easy for you to come up with, writing mystery? Is it because I heard you talk in an interview about when you went to go visit the women's hotel.
The
You were
Barbizon.
looking at the Barbizon, and you suddenly had this whole your imagination went wild. Does that just sort of kind of that's how it happens?
Something will trigger it, and I'll know, like, the hair on the back of my neck stands up when I
Mm,
read something, and I'm thinking, "Oh, that's the story. Here we go."
like,
It's just a matter of doing enough research and trusting my gut that, "Okay, here's where the opening is, and this would be a fun mystery to try and solve."
I went back once I'd finished it and, like, found because sometimes I'd miss the clues in the beginning.
I'll tell you, most writers I know, including myself, we tend to under clue the mystery. When you're writing it, you know it, and so you feel like it's so obvious. And I
Oh,
give it to my agent and she'll go, "No, we need more." And as I'm writing it, I'm thinking, "Oh, it's so obvious, everyone's gonna know." But it's funny how you if it's done well, if the clues are planted well, you can gloss over them
yeah,
and still pull them back and go, "Oh yeah, right. Okay."
totally. You had definite at the unveiling of it all at the end, it was like, "Oh god, I missed that about certain woman," and those very good. Um, so this is your first novel where you went, beyond New York. Do you think you might do more of that?
I would love to. The next book is actually set here in New York City in the oldest house in New York City, which I'd wanted to do for a long time. And so the next book is in New York, and then we'll see what happens. I wouldn't mind trying somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, do you think now having been to Egypt that you really need to go to these places if you are going to write about them?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, that's why I've stuck to New York City because I can go back to Grand Central 3 times, 4 times a week and
Yeah.
figure out, okay, what am I trying to describe? What does it look like? What does it feel like? So, yeah, I would prefer to go there. I'd love to go to London or England and find somewhere there because things are so old there
So
and
old.
really
Yeah.
mine some kind of landmark there would be fun. And, spend 3 months in London. Why not?
Sounds good to me. So this oldest house in New York. So there's a whole female story there too.
And again, I can't believe no one knows about this. And it's just incredible. The mansion is beautiful. It's this huge white columned mansion. It looks like it should belong in Virginia. It's surrounded by
Oh,
gardens and just no one's heard of it. It's a museum and it could really use some attention and love, which is another reason I wanted to do it because the Met doesn't
oh,
need me to
great.
write about them. They're fine. But the Maurice Jumel mansion does. And I thought it'd be a fun way to explore it. And so yeah, the woman who lived there in the 1800s was Eliza Jumel. She was born the daughter of a prostitute in Rhode Island, but she became the richest woman in Manhattan because she was really good at buying and selling real estate.
Wow.
Her second husband was Aaron Burr from
Oh,
Hamilton, but
right.
didn't last long. They got divorced because he was trying to take her money. And she used as her divorce attorney Alexander Hamilton Jr.
Oh,
It's just,
that story was shouting for you.
yeah, a colonial hijinks. It's quite
Uh,
something.
Oh, that's good. And so how long do these books take you? Because you started your career. Well, tell us a little bit about your career because it's changed.
Yeah, yeah. I came to New York as an actress many years ago. Did that for about 10 years. Had a great time. In fact, I was just out last night with a whole bunch of people from the theater company that we all worked in our 20s and 30s. And
Wow. And did you decide, I don't think I want to do this anymore? Or when you were an
yeah,
actress?
yeah, it was fine, but just you have no control over what you want to do next, and you're just at everybody's mercy. So I
Right.
took a Myers-Briggs test because this was the 90s, and it said that I should either be a journalist or a cop.
Uh-huh.
And so I figured, all right. So that's when I applied to Columbia Journalism School and really started learning how to write. And it was nonfiction, but it was a wonderful program to get a master's there.
I went there
And
too.
oh, I didn't know. I
And
didn't
I
know.
did Myers-Briggs too, or an equivalent, because I was a
Oh,
banker and hated it and
oh,
did it. And they said you should be a journalist or a writer. I didn't get cop, but your cop thing kind of fits in with the mystery and all that with investigating that
yeah,
happens.
it's true. I didn't realize that until much later where I realized, oh, and they're both dealing with fairness, right? And what's right and
Uh-huh.
what's and
Yeah.
so that's a big part of it. Oh, that's great. Yeah, and look at us now. Here we are using
Yeah.
our degree.
Exactly.
They'd be really
Exactly.
proud.
And then so you did the journalism, were you like a newspaper or magazine or what kind of a reporter?
I
All
was, this was 2000 and it was called New Media
Oh,
because it was the internet. It was called
wow.
New Media. Yeah. And, we made websites and it was like, oh my God, look at this. It's a website. Anyone
That's
can get
funny.
to it. So, yeah, so that's what I did there. But I took a lot of courses in the arts and culture as much as I could to kind of break, because that was my first love, really.
Yeah. And then did you always think you wanted to write a book?
Never. No way. No, never.
Wow.
Yeah. Couldn't imagine. I loved reading, but never could have written a book. And it wasn't until I was about 45 and just had a story idea that I couldn't shake. And I wanted to read the book
Oh,
that was that story idea. And so I thought, oh, I'll just try writing, but I won't tell a soul. No one will know. And that did eventually morph into my first book. And I'm glad I waited because when I was younger, I had nothing to say on the page. I hadn't really lived life enough.
right.
And so
Di
I felt like I had something to deliver at that point.
So you started writing at what your books at what age?
45. The first one was published
Great.
when I was 49. And then
9 and then
getting into a
your
whole new
first bestseller was not too far after that.
the first
Right?
bestseller was actually 2020. And so I would have been when- 54.
Fantastic. And was that The Lions of Fifth Avenue or
Yeah,
which one
Alliance
was
Fifth Avenue. Yeah. Yeah, I was 53 in 2020. Yeah, so it was during COVID, which was kind of odd because you weren't touring or anything, but suddenly it hit
Oh,
the list.
right.
And it just
Oh,
got so many new readers and it was
I
marvelous.
loved
And that was
that book.
from Good Morning America picking it up.
Ah,
For me,
got it.
their book that month.
Congratulations. And so now you've written 8. I mean, you're just like on a thing, but I also read that you said you should change your career every 10 years, so maybe this is just like a 10-year thing, and then who
Oh, I
knows?
love that. Yeah, you're right. I'm due. I'm due very soon. Yeah, we'll see. This is so much fun. I really enjoy it. I need to take a little more time in between books now because there's just a lot of travel and that right now. So it'll be about 2 years in between books, which gives
Oh,
me a little.
but promoting it, all the
Yeah, yeah.
Are you going for this one, or is it just are you just promoting it in the US?
Yeah, so far that's where it's been. It came out in January, but it's just had legs. And so I've been asked to talk all over the States and it's been so much fun. Yeah, so it's been really
I
busy
s
though. Means I'm
I bet, I bet. So what would you like readers to take away from your The Stolen Queen?
yeah, I think it deals with these women who've been lost to history in many ways, whether you're a pharaoh or an associate curator, finding the truth behind what happened in the past and bringing that to light and how important that is. But really, for me, it's about if you like going to museums, or even if you don't like going to museums, the key is to go and look at a museum like the Met, not as a collection of objects, but a collection of stories. and take the guide and or take a tour and have people who are experts tell you about the things that you're looking at so you can learn the story behind the object and the history behind it. Because I think that gives you a much better sense of time, place, where we are now versus what things were like then. It's about the story behind the objects, not just, okay, there's a necklace from Egypt. Who wore it? What's it made of? What does it mean? That kind of thing.
Did you sort of learn that in your research for this story?
Yeah, yeah. And I had to do a lot. I talked to a wonderful Egyptologist named Colleen Darnell, who
Uh-huh.
took me around the Egyptian wing, and she could read the hieroglyphs right off the tomb,
Oh,
right?
wow.
She's like, well, this
Yeah.
says blah, blah, blah. And just being blown away by there's so much knowledge and there's so much history. It was a long culture, the ancient Egypt. It was, went for 3,500 years, and that's a long time.
That was the other thing I liked about your book is that you gave us knowledge, but you didn't overdo it.
Yeah.
So I felt like, I was learning just enough that made me want to go there, but it wasn't like, oh, this is getting dull at all.
I'll admit that the first draft was full of me showing off. And there were paragraphs where when I went back to reread it, I thought, "Oh no, this is you show you know so much." And I think that happens a lot but you just have to be aware that that first draft, you have to let it
Yeah.
go and get it out there. And then you call what works and what doesn't work and get rid of it.
Okay. I mean, maybe this is obvious question, but do you have any tips for you had no idea you wanted to be a writer and you started mid in your 40s. Any tips for people who are kind of thinking, God, maybe I should give it a go? What would you
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, what's a fun thing to do is this is what I did is there's a place called Gotham Writers Workshop, and it's based here in New York, but you can do it online. And I just signed up for a short story course. That was my first thing. Let me just put my toe in and I'll
Right.
write a short story and get it critiqued. And that was just the way in. Don't feel like you have to write a whole book. You have a really great idea and you want to get it down, but learn as much as you can about craft first, because that's very important. There's so many good books like Stephen King's on writing, Anne Lamott's Bird by Bird. There's really wonderful craft books out there that are incredibly helpful.
When the short story that you wrote, was it about a monument? How did you get the idea to focus on? I mean, it's such a good idea. You've now got the monopoly on New York monuments. It's perfect. But was that what you were writing about to begin with, or no?
No, it was a couple on vacation in Thailand. Yeah,
You
so
always mix personal.
yeah. And yeah, the idea really came from writing about the Barbizon Hotel for women after just learning about the setup there, about how when it went condo in 2005, it had been a storied hotel for women. Grace Kelly, Joan Didion, all these famous people lived there. It went condo, but there were still a dozen of the old time residents still living there. And they were moved into the fourth floor into rent controlled apartments. So they built them studios with kitchenettes that they paid 200 something a month for. And meanwhile, the guy in the penthouse paid 17 million.
Wow.
And these women had lived there for decades and they ran the place. And so I thought, what a great dynamic. And at the time I was a journalist and I thought it would be a great article about how the city and the building and the people have changed
Right.
and how they haven't. But the women of the fourth floor were very private and they were reluctant to be interviewed, which is where I thought, well, what if I made it a book and
Oh,
I could be creative?
interesting.
So that's how it came around. It was just finding a story that I could not shake.
I love it. And your journalism really comes through probably in all your books. You find out these fascinating details.
Yeah. And thank goodness for Columbia, because I wouldn't have known how, you can do a surface search about things,
Right.
but at Columbia is where I learned how to dig deep, how to, really find the people who know what I need to know.
Mhm.
And so it makes it unique in a way. Yeah,
Definitely. Definitely.
journalism is crucial. I couldn't imagine someone saying to me, "Okay, write a book about a woman in, today's time who's going through a divorce." I would just I would have nothing to work with. All of that research is all my fodder.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. It's great. My last question is really just have you read any great books recently? New books, ideally. that you can recommend for us?
Yeah, in fact, a few of them are on your list.
Oh,
The Correspondent, I mean, that's everyone's huge, huge. I just thought it
yeah.
was remarkable.
Yeah, it
Beautiful book.
was.
And Broken Country, I also loved.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
Don't know
that's
that one.
about the Irish countryside in the '60s and the love triangle.
Ooh,
Very, very good. I'm trying to think. I've been reading a lot of books to blurb, so they're coming out later. So
oh,
I'm kind of ahead of time.
oh, of what's available now.
Yeah, but those 2 I think have been my favorites this year.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's all my questions. I really appreciate you talking to me, and good luck on your travels and on this next book, which I can't wait to read.
Yeah, thank you. This is so wonderful, and thanks for everything you do. I just love the way you're bringing all these authors to people's attention.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Fiona's investigative journalistic skills are really put to good use in these historical novels. Anyone wanting to get a real feel for New York City's colorful history should just read her books. A lot more fun than a history class. I also love some of her fun facts. They're strewn with throughout her book, but just today, I loved hearing that a ticket to the Met Ball used to cost $40. Now it costs $75,000 a head, and the Costume Institute nets 31 million a year, none of which they have to share with the museum. It goes all directly back to the Costume Institute. Quite a fun little fact. Anyway, if you've been enjoying the show, I'd be so grateful if you could rate and review it. It only takes a few seconds and it really makes a big difference. Plus, I'd love to know what you think. Be honest. So that's it for today. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you back again in 2 weeks.